The morning sun cast long shadows across Fort Harrison military base in Colorado Springs. But Lieutenant Emma Rodriguez felt nothing but darkness as she walked toward the weapons training facility. Her boots clicked against the concrete with steady determination, even though her heart raced with nervous energy. Today was the annual marksmanship competition, and she knew what was coming. "Well, look who decided to show up," sneered Sergeant Mike Thompson, a burly man with 20 years of military experience etched into his weathered face. He stood with 3 other male soldiers near the shooting range, their laughter cutting through the crisp morning air. "Guess they're really letting anyone compete these days." Emma kept her chin high, her dark eyes focused straight ahead. At 28, she had served her country for 6 years, but some of these men still treated her like she didn't belong. Her petite frame at 5'4" often made others underestimate her, but Emma had learned to use that to her advantage. "Thompson, you better watch yourself," called out Corporal Jake Martinez, one of the few soldiers who had always shown Emma respect. "Rodriguez here might surprise you." "Right," Thompson laughed, slapping his knee. "What's she gonna do? Ask the targets to come closer so she can actually hit them?" The other men burst into laughter, but Emma remained silent. She had heard it all before. When she first arrived at Fort Harrison, the jokes were constant. They called her Little Mouse behind her back, doubting her ability to handle anything more dangerous than paperwork. But Emma had something they didn't expect, an unbreakable spirit forged by years of proving herself in a man's world. Her father, Sergeant Major Carlos Rodriguez, had been a decorated sniper in the Army. He died when Emma was 16, but not before teaching her everything he knew about precision shooting. "It's not about strength, Mia," he would say during their weekend hunting trips in the Colorado mountains. "It's about patience, breathing, and seeing what others miss." Major Patricia Williams approached the group, her crisp uniform and stern expression commanding immediate attention. At 52, she was one of the highest-ranking female officers on base, and had fought her own battles to earn respect. "All right, everyone, listen up. Today's competition isn't just for bragging rights. The top 3 scorers will represent Fort Harrison at the Interbase Championship next month." Emma's pulse quickened. The Interbase Championship was a career-making opportunity. Winners often received commendations, promotions, and respect that lasted throughout their military careers. This was her chance to prove she belonged here. "We'll be testing accuracy at multiple distances," Major Williams continued, starting at 100 yards, then 300, 500, and finally 800 yards. Each shooter gets 5 rounds per distance. Highest combined score wins. Thompson cracked his knuckles confidently. He had won this competition 3 years running and never let anyone forget it. "Hope you brought tissues, Rodriguez. You'll need them when you start crying after missing every shot." The other soldiers chuckled, but Emma noticed Major Williams watching her carefully. There was something in the Major's eyes, not pity, but curiosity, like she was waiting to see what Emma was made of. As they moved to the first shooting position, Emma checked her rifle with practiced efficiency. It was a standard M for carbine, nothing special, but she had spent countless hours learning its quirks and tendencies. Every weapon had a personality, her father had taught her, and the key was learning to work with it, not against it. The first round began at 100 yards. The other competitors took their positions, joking and boasting about their expected scores. Emma lay prone, adjusting her position until everything felt perfectly aligned. She controlled her breathing, feeling her heartbeat slow to a steady rhythm. The first few shooters fired rapidly, eager to prove their speed and accuracy. Most scored well at this close distance. It was hard to miss completely at 100 yards. When Thompson's turn came, he fired 5 quick shots and scored 47 out of 50 possible points. The crowd of watching soldiers cheered and whistled. "Beat that, Mouse," Thompson called out, using the nickname that had followed Emma for months. Emma stepped up to the firing line, ignoring the whispers and snickers around her as she settled into position, her body becoming one with the rifle. The target seemed to grow larger in her scope as she controlled her breathing. 1 breath in, half breath out, hold, squeeze. The rifle cracked, and she immediately knew it was a perfect shot. Without rushing, she repeated the process 4 more times, each shot delivered with mechanical precision. When the range officer checked her target, his eyebrows raised in surprise. "Rodriguez, perfect score, 50 out of 50. The laughter died away. Thompson's confident smirk faded slightly. But Emma knew this was just the beginning. The real challenge would come at longer distances, where wind, elevation, and dozens of other factors separated the good shooters from the great ones. As they prepared for the 300-yard round, Emma heard Thompson muttering to his friends, "Lucky shots. She'll crack under pressure at the longer distances. They always do." But Emma wasn't worried about pressure. She was thinking about her father, about all the people who had doubted her, and about the chance to finally show them who she really was. The little girl who had learned to shoot in the Colorado mountains was ready to become the soldier her father had always believed she could be. The 300-yard line felt different. The targets looked smaller, the wind picked up slightly, and Emma could sense the doubt creeping into some of the other competitors' minds. But not Thompson. He was still full of confidence, cracking jokes and making loud predictions about his upcoming victory. "All right, Rodriguez got lucky on the close shots," he announced to anyone who would listen. "But now we separate the shooters from the pretenders. This is where technique really matters." Emma positioned herself carefully, making minute adjustments to account for the crosswind that had developed. She watched the grass near the targets, noting how it bent and swayed. Wind reading was an art form, something that couldn't be taught from a manual. It had to be felt, understood on an instinctive level. The other shooters went first again. Most scored well, with a few dropping points due to the increased distance and wind. When Thompson took his turn, he fired with his usual quick confidence. His shots grouped well, earning him 46 out of 50 points. Still excellent, but not perfect. "Your turn, little mouse," Thompson called out, but there was less mockery in his voice now. Her perfect score at 100 yards had gotten his attention. Emma approached the line, blocking out everything except the target in her scope. She could feel the wind on her face, see how it affected the mirage rising from the heated ground. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "The target will tell you everything you need to know. You just have to listen." She fired her first shot, watching through the scope as it struck just slightly left of center. Instead of being discouraged, she smiled slightly. Now she knew exactly how the wind was affecting her bullets. She made a tiny adjustment and fired 4 more times. "Another perfect score for Rodriguez," the range officer announced. 50 out of 50. This time there was no laughter from the other soldiers. Thompson's jaw tightened, and Emma could see him trying to calculate the math. With 2 perfect scores, she now had 100 points. He had 93. The pressure was building. Major Williams approached Emma as they prepared for the 500-yard stage. "Nice shooting, Lieutenant. Where did you learn to read wind like that?" "My father taught me, ma'am," he said. "Shooting was like having a conversation with the environment." "Your father was a wise man." Major Williams paused, studying Emma's face. "I knew Carlos Rodriguez. He was one of the finest soldiers I ever served with. He would be proud of what I'm seeing today." Emma felt a warm surge of emotion but pushed it down. She couldn't afford to get emotional now, not with the 2 longest distances still ahead. The 500-yard and 800-yard shots would be the real test. As they moved to the 500-yard line, Emma noticed that word of her performance had spread. More soldiers had gathered to watch, including some officers she didn't recognize. The pressure was mounting, but instead of feeling nervous, Emma felt energized. This was what she had trained for. Wind had picked up even more, and the targets now looked like small dots in the distance. Several shooters struggled at this range, with scores dropping into the 30s and low 40s. The mathematics of ballistics became critical here. Bullet drop, wind drift, and atmospheric pressure all played roles in where the shots would land. Thompson stepped up for his turn, and Emma could see the tension in his shoulders. He took longer to aim this time, clearly feeling the pressure of her perfect scores. His first shot hit the target, but not in the center ring. He fired 4 more times, and when the score was announced, he had scored 41 out of 50. "Damn wind," Thompson muttered, but Emma could hear the frustration in his voice. When her turn came, Emma felt completely calm. She had been preparing for this moment her entire life. Every hunting trip with her father, every hour spent at the range, every moment of doubt and mockery had led to this. She studied the wind flags, watched the heat shimmer, and calculated the necessary adjustments in her head. The first shot felt perfect as it left the barrel. Through her scope, she watched it strike the center of the target. 4 more shots followed, each one placed with surgical precision. "Perfect score again," the range officer called out. "Rodriguez has 150 out of 150 possible points going into the final round." The crowd of watching soldiers had grown larger, and Emma could hear murmurs of amazement and respect, but she also heard something else. Thompson talking angrily to his friends. "This is impossible," he was saying. "Nobody shoots 3 perfect rounds in a row. There's got to be something wrong with her rifle. Or maybe she's getting help somehow." Emma pretended not to hear, but the accusations stung. even when she proved herself. Some people would find ways to diminish her accomplishments, but she pushed those thoughts aside. She had one more distance to go, 800 yards, the ultimate test of a precision shooter. As they prepared for the final round, Major Williams pulled Emma aside. "Lieutenant, I want you to know that what you're doing out there is remarkable. I've been running this competition for 8 years, and I've never seen anyone shoot 3 consecutive perfect rounds. Thank you, ma'am. But it's not over yet. No, it's not. And I want you to know that regardless of what happens at 800 yards, you've already proven something important here today. You belong in this military, Rodriguez. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." Emma nodded, grateful for the Major's support. But she knew that winning this competition was about more than just personal satisfaction. It was about opening doors for other women who would come after her, showing them that excellence could not be denied or dismissed. The 800-yard line awaited, and with it, the chance to silence her doubters once and for all. The 800-yard firing line felt like the edge of the world. The targets were barely visible dots, even through the high-powered scopes. This was where careers were made or broken, where the difference between good shooters and legendary ones became crystal clear. Emma could feel the weight of expectations pressing down on her. Word of her 3 consecutive perfect scores had spread throughout the base, and now dozens of soldiers lined the viewing area. Some were cheering her on, while others remained skeptical. She could hear Thompson's voice among the doubters. "No way she keeps this up," he was telling anyone who would listen. 800 yards separates the real shooters from the lucky ones. Watch her crack under the pressure. The wind at this distance was treacherous, swirling and changing direction every few seconds. The bullet would be in flight for nearly a full second, giving the wind plenty of time to push it off course. Temperature, humidity, and even the rotation of the earth could affect the shot at this range. Emma closed her eyes and thought about her father. She remembered a day when she was 17, shortly before he deployed for his final tour. They had been practicing at long range in the mountains, and she was getting frustrated with her inconsistent performance. "Mia," he had said, putting his hand on her shoulder, "long-range shooting isn't about the rifle or the scope or even the target. It's about finding the quiet place inside yourself where doubt can't reach. When you find that place, the shot becomes automatic." Now, standing at the 800-yard line with everyone watching, Emma searched for that quiet place. She blocked out Thompson's voice, the murmurs of the crowd, even the sound of the wind. She focused on her breathing, on the steady rhythm of her heartbeat, on the feeling of the rifle in her hands. The first several shooters took their turns, and the scores reflected the difficulty of the distance. Most were scoring in the 20s and 30s, with even experienced marksmen struggling to find the center of the target consistently. When Thompson's turn came, Emma could see the pressure written across his face. He took nearly 2 minutes to line up his first shot, far longer than his usual quick pace. When he fired, the bullet struck the target but well outside the high-scoring rings. His subsequent shots were better, but the damage was done. His final score at 800 yards was 28 out of 50, giving him a total of 210 out of 250 possible points. "Not bad for the conditions," Thompson said, trying to sound casual, but Emma could hear the disappointment in his voice. "Let's see if the mouse can handle the real pressure." Emma stepped up to the line, and the crowd fell silent. She could feel hundreds of eyes watching her, waiting to see if she could maintain her perfect streak. The pressure was immense, but instead of fighting it, she embraced it. This was her moment. She settled into her shooting position, making until everything felt perfectly aligned. Through her scope, the target looked impossibly small and distant. The wind flags near the target were dancing unpredictably, and she could see heat mirage shimmering in the distance. For nearly 3 minutes, Emma studied the conditions, waiting for the right moment. She watched the wind patterns, looking for a lull or a consistent direction. The crowd grew restless, with some people starting to whisper that she was overthinking the shot. Then she saw it. A brief moment when the wind flags aligned and the mirage steadied. Her finger found the trigger, and she squeezed with the same smooth motion her father had taught her years ago. The rifle cracked, and through her scope, she watched the bullet's trace as it arced toward the target. After what felt like an eternity, she saw the black dot appear in the center of the target. Perfect hit. The crowd erupted, but Emma was already preparing for her second shot. She had found her rhythm now, and each subsequent shot felt like a natural extension of her will. When the dust settled and all 5 rounds had been fired, the range officer's voice carried clearly across the field. "Perfect score. Rodriguez has fired a perfect 250 out of 250 possible points." The silence that followed was deafening. In 8 years of competition, No one had ever fired 4 consecutive perfect rounds. Emma had just made military history, but more importantly, she had proven that skill and dedication couldn't be denied or dismissed. That she stood up from the firing line. The crowd exploded into applause. Soldiers who had ignored her or mocked her were now cheering and whistling. Even some of Thompson's friends were shaking their heads in amazement and clapping reluctantly, but Thompson himself was nowhere to be seen. Emma spotted him walking away from the range, his shoulders slumped in defeat. Part of her felt sorry for him, but a larger part felt vindicated. For 6 years she had endured jokes, dismissive comments, and outright discrimination. Today, she had answered all of them with her rifle. Major Williams approached with a wide smile on her face. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, congratulations. You've just set a new base record that may never be broken. I'll be proud to recommend you for the Interbase Championship team." "Thank you, ma'am. I won't let you down." "You already haven't." The major paused, looking thoughtful. "You know, your performance today reminds me of something your father once told me. He said that true strength isn't about overpowering your opponents, it's about being so undeniably excellent that they have no choice but to respect you." Emma felt tears welling up in her eyes, but she blinked them back. She had learned long ago not to show emotion in front of her fellow soldiers, not if she wanted to be taken seriously. But inside, she felt a warm glow of satisfaction and pride. As the crowd began to disperse, Corporal Martinez jogged over to congratulate her. "Emma, that was incredible. I can't believe what I just witnessed." "Thanks, Jake. It feels good to finally show everyone what I can do." "Show them hell, you just made them eat their words and ask for seconds." Emma laughed, feeling lighter than she had in months. But even as she celebrated this victory, she knew that one competition wouldn't change everything. There would still be doubters, still be people who questioned whether she belonged. The real test would come at the Interbase Championship, where she would face the best shooters from across the entire region. But for now, for this moment, Emma Rodriguez was exactly where she belonged, standing tall, holding her rifle, and knowing that she had earned the respect of everyone who mattered. 3 weeks after her record-breaking performance at Fort Harrison, Emma found herself at Peterson Air Force Base, preparing for the Interbase Marksmanship Championship. The competition brought together the finest shooters from military installations across the western United States, and the stakes had never been higher. The championship wasn't just about individual glory, it was about representing your base, your unit, and proving that your training program produced the best soldiers. Emma felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders, knowing that she was the first woman in Fort Harrison's history to compete at this level. Major Williams had accompanied her to Peterson, along with 2 other shooters from their base staff, Sergeant David Park and Sergeant First Class Maria Santos. Both were excellent marksmen who had placed 2nd and 3rd in the base competition, but everyone knew that Emma was their best hope for victory. "Remember," Major Williams told her on the morning of competition, "you've already proven yourself. Just shoot like you did 3 weeks ago, and nobody can touch you." Emma nodded, but she could feel the pressure building. The other competitors were studying her, whispering among themselves. Word of her perfect 250 score had spread throughout the military shooting community, and she knew that everyone would be gunning for her. The championship format was different from the base competition. Instead of 4 distances, shooters would face 5 increasingly difficult challenges: 300 yards standing, 500 yards kneeling, 600 yards prone with time pressure, 800 yards in variable wind conditions, and finally, a mystery distance that wouldn't be revealed until the final round. As Emma prepared her equipment, she noticed a familiar figure approaching. Sergeant Thompson had somehow managed to get himself assigned as an observer for the competition, ostensibly to support his base team, but Emma could see the jealousy and resentment burning in his eyes. "Well, well," Thompson said with a fake smile. "If it isn't our record-breaking superstar, feeling the pressure yet, Rodriguez?" "I'm feeling fine, Sergeant. Just focused on representing Fort Harrison the best I can, right? Just remember, this isn't your little base competition anymore. These are real shooters here, not the amateurs you impressed back home. When you crack under the pressure, and you will try not to embarrass us too badly." Emma turned away, refusing to let him get under her skin, but his words stung because they echoed her own deepest fears. What if her base performance had been a fluke? What if she really couldn't handle this level of competition? The first stage, 300 yards. Standing was designed to test fundamental marksmanship skills without the support of prone or kneeling positions. Emma had always been strong at standing shots, thanks to countless hours of practice her father had insisted upon. "Anyone can shoot well lying down," he used to say. but real shooters can hit their target standing up in the wind. A competition was fierce. Shooters from bases across California, Nevada, Arizona, and Colorado had come to prove their skills. Emma watched as several competitors posted scores in the high 40s. Excellent shooting by any standard. When her turn came, Emma felt the familiar calm settle over her. The wind was tricky, gusting and changing direction, but she had learned to read these conditions. She fired 5 deliberate shots, each one carefully aimed and timed to coincide with lulls in the wind. Rodriguez, Fort Harrison, 50 out of 50, the announcer called out. A murmur of appreciation ran through the crowd of observers. Starting with a perfect score put Emma in an excellent position, but it also painted a target on her back. Every other competitor now knew they had to beat perfection. The second stage, 500 yards kneeling, proved more challenging for several shooters. The kneeling position offered less stability than prone but more than standing, requiring a delicate balance of bone support and muscle control. Emma's smaller frame actually worked to her advantage here, allowing her to find natural shooting positions that felt comfortable and stable again. She fired a perfect round, putting her at 100 out of 100 points after 2 stages. The crowd was beginning to buzz with excitement, and Emma could see photographers and journalists taking notes. She was becoming the story of the competition, but it was during the break before the third stage that everything went wrong. Emma was in the equipment area, checking her rifle and preparing for the 600-yard prone stage with time pressure, when Thompson approached her with a concerned expression. "Rodriguez, we might have a problem," he said quietly. One of the range officials was asking questions about your rifle. "Seems like someone reported that you might be using unauthorized modifications." Emma's blood ran cold. "What kind of modifications?" "They're saying maybe you've altered the trigger or the barrel." "Look, I know you wouldn't cheat, but these officials take this stuff seriously. They want to inspect your rifle before the next stage." Emma's hands shook as she thought about the implications. Even if her rifle was perfectly legal, which it was, the inspection process would disrupt her mental preparation and cast doubt on her previous performances. Worse, if they found any minor technical violation, her scores could be disqualified. "Who reported this?" she asked. Thompson shrugged, but Emma caught something in his expression, a flash of satisfaction that he tried to hide. "Could have been anyone. Competition brings out the worst in some people." As Emma waited for the inspection team, her confidence began to crumble. The other competitors were using the break to rest and prepare, while she had to defend herself against accusations of cheating. She could feel eyes on her, whispers spreading through the crowd. The inspection took 20 minutes, 20 precious minutes, during which Emma's mental preparation was completely disrupted. When they finally cleared her rifle as completely regulation, she felt drained and shaken. "All clear, Lieutenant," the chief inspector said. "Your equipment is perfectly legal." "Someone gave us bad information," Emma nodded, but the damage was done. As she prepared for the 600-yard stage, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone was trying to sabotage her. The stage required shooters to engage 5 targets in under 2 minutes, a test of both accuracy and speed that demanded complete focus. For the first time in the competition, Emma's performance wavered. The time pressure, combined with her shaken confidence from the equipment inspection, caused her to rush her shots slightly. She still shot well, 47 out of 50, but it wasn't the perfection she had been achieving. Thompson was waiting for her when she finished. "Tough break on that stage," he said with mock sympathy. "Guess the pressure finally got to you. Still, 47 is respectable for someone in their first big competition." Emma stared at him, and suddenly everything clicked into place. The false equipment report, his convenient presence when she was informed, the barely concealed satisfaction in his voice. Thompson had orchestrated the whole thing. "You reported my equipment, didn't you?" she said quietly. "I don't know what you're talking about," Thompson replied, but his smirk gave him away. "I'm just here to support the team." Emma felt a surge of anger unlike anything she had ever experienced. For 6 years, she had endured Thompson's mockery and disrespect with professionalism and dignity, but this was different. This was sabotage, a deliberate attempt to destroy her chances of success through lies and deception. She wanted to confront him, to expose what he had done, but she knew it would only cause more disruption. Instead, she channeled her anger into cold determination. Thompson had cost her 1 stage, but the competition wasn't over. She still had 2 more chances to prove that no amount of sabotage could stop her when she was truly focused. The 8 variable win stage awaited, and Emma Rodriguez was ready to show everyone, especially Sergeant Thompson, what she was really made of. The 800-yard stage had always been Emma's strongest distance, but now it carried extra meaning. She could feel Thompson watching her from the observation area, probably expecting her to continue crumbling under the pressure he had created. Instead, Emma felt a cold clarity settling over her mind. The wind conditions were brutal, gusting from multiple directions with no predictable pattern. Several top competitors had already struggled, with scores dropping into the 30s and low 40s. This was exactly the kind of challenge that separated good shooters from great ones. Emma took her position and began her ritual of reading the environment. She watched grass, flags, and mirage patterns for nearly 5 minutes, longer than she had ever taken before. Some spectators began to murmur impatiently, but Emma blocked them out completely. She wasn't just shooting for herself anymore. She was shooting for every woman who had been told she didn't belong, for every soldier who had been undermined by jealousy and petty sabotage, and for her father's memory. Most of all, she was shooting to prove that excellence couldn't be diminished by small minds and cruel tactics. Her first shot rang out with authority. Through her scope, she watched the bullet fight through the swirling wind and strike dead center. The second shot followed, then the third, fourth, and fifth. Each one found its mark with mechanical precision. Perfect score, the range officer announced. Rodriguez, Fort Harrison, 50 out of 50. The crowd erupted in amazement. After the disruption of the equipment inspection and her slightly off performance at 600 yards, nobody had expected Emma to return to perfect shooting, but here she was, demonstrating the kind of mental toughness that defined true champions. Allowed herself a small smile as she gathered her equipment. She could see Thompson in the distance, his face dark with anger and disbelief. His sabotage had backfired spectacularly, only serving to fuel her determination. Major Williams approached with barely contained excitement. "Emma, that was incredible. You're tied for first place going into the final stage." The final mystery distance turned out to be 1,000 yards further than most military competitions ever tested. At this range, the bullet would be in flight for over a second, and the slightest error in calculation or execution would result in a complete miss. Only the top 5 shooters from the previous stages would attempt this distance. Emma found herself competing against seasoned veterans with decades of experience, men who had initially dismissed her as an inexperienced newcomer. Now they were studying her technique, trying to understand how someone so young could shoot with such consistency that as the other competitors took their turns, Emma noticed a commotion in the observation area. Thompson was arguing with someone, a man in civilian clothes with a press badge. Their voices were raised, and Emma could make out fragments of their conversation. False allegations about equipment. Trying to undermine the competition. Completely unprofessional behavior. Emma realized that someone had witnessed Thompson's sabotage and was questioning him about it. The journalist seemed to be investigating the equipment complaint, and Thompson was getting increasingly agitated as he tried to defend his actions. But Emma couldn't afford to be distracted by Thompson's problems. The other shooters had posted respectable scores at 1,000 yards, but nothing exceptional. The leader so far had managed 44 out of 50, leaving the door open for someone to seize victory with a strong performance. When her turn came, Emma felt completely at peace. All the anger, frustration, and hurt from Thompson's sabotage had been transformed into pure focus. She was no longer shooting against other competitors, she was shooting against doubt itself. The target at 1,000 yards was barely visible, even with her high-powered scope. The wind had calmed slightly, but at this distance, even a gentle breeze could push a bullet several inches off course. Emma studied the conditions with infinite patience, waiting for the perfect moment. Her first shot felt perfect as it left the barrel. The recoil was smooth, her follow-through was automatic, and she instinctively knew it was a center hit before the spotter could even call it. 4 more shots followed, each one delivered with the same calm precision. "Perfect score," came the announcement that sent the crowd into a frenzy. "Rodriguez has fired 50 out of 50 at 1,000 yards for a total competition score of 247 out of 250. Emma had not only won the championship, she had done it with a score that shattered every previous record. More importantly, she had proven that talent and determination would always triumph over jealousy and sabotage. As she stood up from the firing line, the crowd gave her a standing ovation. Soldiers from every base represented were cheering, recognizing that they had witnessed something truly special. Even competitors who had been skeptical earlier were now approaching to congratulate her and ask about her training methods. Major Williams reached her first, tears of pride visible in her eyes. "Emma, I am so proud of you. You've not only won this championship, you've shown everyone what Fort Harrison soldiers are made of." But the best moment came when the journalist who had been questioning Thompson approached Emma with his notepad ready. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, I'm Jim Patterson from Military Times. I'd like to ask you about some allegations that were made about your equipment during today's competition." Emma looked over at Thompson, who was now standing alone, his face pale with the realization that his sabotage had been exposed. She could have destroyed him with a few words, could have revealed his petty jealousy and unprofessional conduct to a national military publication. Instead, Emma smiled and shook her head. "I'd rather talk about the incredible level of competition here today. These shooters represent the finest marksmen in the military, and it was an honor to compete against them." The journalist looked surprised but continued taking notes as Emma deflected attention away from the controversy and toward praising her fellow competitors. She refused to let Thompson's actions become the story of her victory later. As the awards ceremony concluded and Emma held her championship trophy, Major Williams pulled her aside. "You know, you could have buried Thompson with that reporter. Why didn't you?" Emma looked out at the crowd of soldiers, many of whom were now treating her with the respect she had always deserved. "Because, ma'am, I didn't win this competition to destroy anyone. I won it to prove that excellence speaks louder than doubt. Thompson's actions speak for themselves. I don't need to say anything more." As they prepared to return to Fort Harrison, Emma received word that her performance had caught the attention of military leadership at the highest levels. There was talk of special assignments, advanced training opportunities, and a career trajectory that would have seemed impossible just months earlier. But the real victory wasn't in the trophy or the recognition. It was in the moment when she had channeled Thompson's sabotage into fuel for her own success, proving that the only opinion that truly mattered was the one written in the accuracy of her shots. The little girl who had learned to shoot in the Colorado Mountains had become a champion, and no one would ever question whether she belonged again. The targets didn't lie, the scores couldn't be disputed, and Lieutenant Emma Rodriguez had made her point in the only language that truly mattered. Perfect precision under pressure. As their convoy pulled away from Peterson Air Force Base, Emma could see other female soldiers watching from the windows, and she knew that her victory had opened doors for all of them. Sometimes the best revenge wasn't getting even, it was getting better, and proving that excellence was the ultimate answer to every doubt.